My son invited 300 guests to his wedding, but somehow forgot to include me, his own father. When I asked why, he said, "Dad, this is a high society event. Someone who still works as a handyman would just embarrass us." I didn't argue. I just nodded and wished him well. On his wedding day, I walked through the front doors of the venue, a luxury resort on Vancouver Island, and stepped onto the stage to welcome everyone to my property. The ceremony fell apart in 20 minutes. Before I continue, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you are right now. The call came on a Tuesday evening while I was replacing a leaky faucet in my kitchen. November rain streaked the windows of my modest bungalow in Burnaby, and the gray light made everything feel smaller than it was. I almost let it go to voicemail. "Dad, incredible news." My son, Michael's voice burst through the speaker with that particular brightness he reserved for announcements. Victoria said yes. "We're getting married." I set down my wrench and leaned against the counter. "My boy, engaged." The words should have filled me with pure joy, but something in his tone felt rehearsed, like he had practiced this conversation in front of a mirror. "That's wonderful, son. I'm so happy for you. I knew you would be. Listen, we should celebrate. Can you meet us for dinner tomorrow? There's this new place in Yaletown, Oro, 7 o'clock. Us? Victoria and me. She's dying to see you again. Victoria Chen. I had met her exactly twice in the 18 months they had been dating. Both times, her eyes had performed that familiar calculation, scanning my paint-stained work boots, my calloused hands, my truck with the magnetic sign reading Murray's maintenance services on the door. "I'll be there," I said. The next evening, I pulled my 2009 Ford F-150 into the parking garage beneath Oro and immediately spotted the white BMW gleaming under the fluorescent lights. New model, dealer plates still visible. I parked 3 spots away, climbed out, and caught my reflection in a pillar mirror. Clean flannel shirt, decent jeans, work boots I had scrubbed for 20 minutes. Simple, practical, exactly who I had chosen to be for the past 5 years. Through the restaurant window, I could see Michael sitting across from Victoria at a corner table. She was laughing at something, touching his arm in that performative way people do when they want to be seen. My son had grown into a handsome man, 32 now, with his mother's dark hair and my stubborn jawline. He turned as I approached, and I watched his expression flicker, just for a moment, before settling into a careful smile. "Dad, you made it." His handshake was quick, professional, the kind you give a colleague rather than your father. "Victoria, you remember my dad." "Mr. Murray, so lovely to see you again." Victoria's handshake lasted exactly 1 second. Her eyes performed that familiar scan, head to toe, cataloging details. The worn collar of my shirt, the scratch on my watch face, the calluses on my palm. Her smile never wavered, but something behind it cooled. "Please, call me Robert," I said, sliding into the booth across from them. The menu prices made my eyebrows rise, not because I could not afford them, but because I knew Michael could not on his marketing coordinator salary. This dinner was a statement, carefully calculated. "So tell me about the engagement," I said. "How did it happen?" Michael launched into the story, something about a sunset proposal at Stanley Park, but I found myself watching Victoria instead, the way she kept checking her phone, the way her attention drifted whenever Michael mentioned anything about our family history, the way she perked up only when discussing the wedding plans. "We're thinking June," Victoria cut in, her voice carrying that particular enthusiasm reserved for expensive purchases. "The Cascade Resort on Vancouver Island. It's absolutely stunning, Dad. Oceanfront, 5-star, very exclusive." Dad. She had called me Dad, though I had met her twice, and she had barely looked at me either time. "Sounds beautiful," I said carefully. Michael shifted in his seat. These events add up fast, you know. Venue, catering, flowers, photographer. We're looking at maybe 80, 90,000 for something appropriate. The number hung in the air. Victoria studied her wine glass. Michael would not meet my eyes. "That's quite an investment," I said. "Victoria's parents are contributing, of course." Michael's voice dropped slightly. "And I was hoping, if you could help at all, even a little, it would mean so much. For Mom's memory, you know?" He invoked Susan like a trump card, knowing it would cut deep, and it did. My wife had dreamed of seeing our son married. She had talked about it during those long nights in the hospital, planning details she would never see. She died 4 years ago, believing Michael had grown into a good man. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, pretended to calculate the performance of a struggling handyman, carefully budgeting his limited resources. "I can manage 40,000, I said finally. "It might take most of what I have saved, but your mother would have wanted you to have a beautiful day." Michael's face transformed with relief. Victoria's shoulders relaxed. Neither of them asked where a handyman would get $40,000. They simply accepted it, like accepting a gift they had always deserved. "Thank you, Dad. You don't know what this means." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant. It meant they had calculated my worth, found it barely sufficient, and moved on. The dinner ended with promises to talk soon, to coordinate details, to stay in touch. I walked back to my truck, while they climbed into the BMW. Victoria's laughter echoed across the parking garage. Something about at least he came through. I sat in my truck for a long time, Susan's wedding ring pressing against my chest on its silver chain. I had worn it there since she passed, a private reminder of everything we had built together. My son was ashamed of me. The realization settled into my bones like cold rain. 4 days later, Michael's car appeared in my driveway. Saturday afternoon, weak winter sun, fighting through clouds. I watched from the living room window as he sat behind the wheel for nearly a minute, studying my house. The peeling paint on the porch, the dated aluminum siding, the work truck with its magnetic sign. Visual evidence confirming what he believed. His father was barely scraping by. He finally emerged, smoothing his expensive coat, and walked to the door. "Hey, Dad, the place looks good." The lie came easily. The place looked tired, and we both knew it. I led him to the kitchen table, poured coffee into mismatched mugs, and waited. "So, I wanted to go over some wedding details." Michael pulled out his phone, swiped through photos. "The Cascade Resort is booked, June 15th. Victoria found this amazing wedding planner who's handling everything. Catering, flowers, music, the whole package. Sounds like you've got it all figured out. We're expecting about 300 guests. Victoria's family is huge, and her dad has a lot of business contacts. Very influential people, you know? Executives, investors, that crowd." I noticed he said Victoria's family, and that crowd, as if I existed in a separate category entirely. "The thing is, Dad," Michael set down his phone, finally met my eyes. "I need to transfer the money soon. The venue requires a deposit, and Victoria's parents are waiting on confirmation of our contribution before they finalize theirs." Our contribution. As if he had contributed anything beyond expectations. "I'll transfer it Monday," I said. Michael's relief was palpable. He stood, came around the table, gave me an awkward hug that lasted 2 seconds. "Thanks, Dad. Really. This means everything." He left 15 minutes later, promises dissolving in his wake. I watched his car disappear down the street, then moved to my basement office, the room Michael had never seen, the room containing the truth of who I really was. My computer hummed to life. Banking apps opened, passwords entered. The account Michael knew about showed a balance of $62,000, modest savings for a working man. I scheduled the $40,000 transfer to his account. Below that account, in tabs I did not open, other accounts held figures that would have made my son choke on his coffee. 14 million in investments, 8 million in real estate holdings. The quarterly royalty statements from Murray Hospitality Group, the company I had founded 30 years ago. The company that owned 17 boutique resorts across British Columbia, including the Cascade Resort on Vancouver Island, where my son was planning his wedding without knowing his father owned the venue. I had started as a maintenance worker at a small hotel in Whistler, back when Susan and I had nothing but dreams and determination. We saved every penny, bought a failing motel, turned it around, bought another. By the time Michael was 10, we owned 3 properties. By the time he graduated university, we owned 12. Susan had insisted we live modestly, teach Michael values, keep him grounded despite our wealth. After she died, I made a decision. Step back from public life. Live simply. See who valued me for myself rather than my money. 5 years of playing the struggling handyman. 5 years of watching relationships reveal their true nature. Michael had passed every test until now. That evening, I sat on my back deck despite the cold, holding a photograph of Susan and me at the Cascade Resort opening ceremony 10 years ago. We stood together cutting the ribbon, the Pacific Ocean gleaming behind us, our dream made manifest. Michael had chosen my resort for his wedding without knowing. The irony would have made Susan laugh, then cry, then ask me what I planned to do about it. Voices drifted from inside the house. I had left the front window open, and Michael was on my porch, phone pressed to his ear. He thought I was in the basement. The money's coming Monday. All 40,000. His voice carried a tone I had never heard before. Dismissive, almost mocking. Victoria's response was tinny through the speaker, but I caught fragments. I know, right? That's probably everything he has. Poor guy. Michael laughed, sharp and unkind. Look, it's fine. We'll seat him somewhere in the back, maybe with the catering staff. Half of Victoria's family won't even notice him. Silence. Then, Victoria's voice, clearer now. Are you sure he won't cause problems? Standing around in his work clothes, telling stories about fixing toilets? I'll handle it. Trust me, no one will even know he's there. Anyway, I gotta go. Love you. He ended the call. His footsteps faded toward his car. The engine started. He drove away. I stood in the darkness of my kitchen, the photograph still in my hand, my son's words echoing through my skull. Seat him in the back, with the catering staff. No one will even know he's there. The hurt was sharp and genuine, deep as anything I had felt since losing Susan. But underneath it, something harder began to crystallize. 3 weeks passed. The money transferred. Christmas came and went with a brief, obligatory phone call from Michael. January brought freezing rain and silence. I checked my email obsessively, watching for wedding updates. My mailbox stayed empty. My phone stayed quiet. Then, on a gray February morning, I ran into David Chen at the hardware store. Victoria's uncle, though he did not know our connection. We had met at a charity gala years ago, back when I attended such events as Robert Murray, founder of Murray Hospitality Group. Robert, good to see you. David's handshake was warm, genuine. He had no idea about my current circumstances, still thought of me as the resort developer. Did you get the invitation? June 15th at the Cascade. My niece Victoria is marrying some marketing fellow. Should be quite the event. My heart stopped, then started again, harder. Invitation? For the wedding. 300 guests, very exclusive. I assumed you'd be on the list, given that you own the venue. He laughed. Talk about an awkward situation if someone forgot to include the property owner. I forced a smile. Must have gotten lost in the mail. You know how these things go. After David left, I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. 300 guests. David Chen received an invitation. I did not. I drove home, opened my laptop, searched my email for anything from Michael or Victoria. Nothing. No invitation. No acknowledgement. No inclusion in any planning documents. My neighbor Margaret knocked on my door that afternoon, envelope in hand. Robert, look at this. Your son's wedding invitation arrived. How exciting. June at the Cascade Resort. I've heard it's absolutely gorgeous. She handed me the envelope, cream-colored, elegant script. I opened it carefully. Victoria Chen and Michael Murray request the pleasure of your company. The Cascade Resort, Vancouver Island. My resort. My property. The place Susan and I had poured our hearts into building. Margaret received an invitation. I did not. That evening, I called Michael. Kept my voice light, casual. Hey, son, just checking in about the wedding. I haven't received my invitation yet. Should I be watching the mail? A pause. Too long. I heard Victoria's voice in the background, sharp and questioning. Oh, Dad, yeah, the printer had some delays. We're still sending out the last batch. Don't worry about it. I'll hand-deliver yours personally. The lie was smooth, practiced. I recognized it now. The particular brightness he used when he was performing. Sounds good. Looking forward to it. I hung up, waited 3 days. Nothing arrived. On the 4th day, I called again. Michael, I need a straight answer. Am I invited to your wedding? The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. 15. I heard him breathing, heard the calculation happening in real time. Dad, look. This is complicated. His voice had changed, dropped the performance, settled into something colder. Victoria's family has certain expectations. Her father's business partners will be there. Important people, executives, investors, the kind of crowd that notices things. Notices things like what? Like, look, you're a handyman, Dad. You drive a work truck. You wear flannel shirts. These people talk about investment portfolios and vacation homes in Tuscany. What would you even say to them? I see. It's not personal. It's just, you'd be uncomfortable. You'd feel out of place. We're actually doing you a favor. The words hit like physical blows, each one precise and devastating. So I'm not invited to my own son's wedding because I'm too poor. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Dad, please understand. This wedding represents Victoria's family's social position, my career advancement, our future. We need to present a certain image. Having you there, in your work clothes, telling stories about unclogging drains. It would undermine everything we're trying to build. I thought of Susan, the woman who married me when I had nothing but a maintenance worker's salary and a dream, who believed in me when I could not afford a proper engagement ring, who spent 30 years building an empire beside me, always insisting we stay humble, stay grounded, stay real. She would have been heartbroken to hear our son speak this way. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. Thank you for your honesty, Michael. Dad, don't be like that. We'll visit after the honeymoon. Show you photos. It'll be fine. Goodbye, Michael. I ended the call before he could respond. For a long moment, I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, feeling something shift inside my chest. The hurt remained, genuine and deep. But underneath it, that harder thing crystallized into clarity. For 5 years since Susan's death, I had lived modestly to see people's true character. Mission accomplished. I had seen my son's truth, heard it spoken in his own words. Now he would see mine. I walked to my basement office, opened my real accounts, and began planning. The next morning, I drove to downtown Vancouver and took the elevator to the 31st floor of the Bentall Center. Jennifer Walsh's law firm occupied the entire floor. She had been my attorney for 25 years, handled the structuring of Murray Hospitality Group, knew every detail of my hidden wealth. She was also the only person I had told about my decision to live modestly after Susan died. Her assistant showed me into the corner office overlooking the harbor. Jennifer entered moments later, her expression shifting from professional courtesy to concern when she saw my face. Robert, what happened? I told her everything. Michael's rejection, his explanation that I was too poor, would embarrass him, should stay home. The venue being the Cascade Resort, my own property. Jennifer's composure cracked. He said what? That you're too poor for his wedding? At your resort? She sat down hard, coffee sloshing over the rim of her cup. Robert, this is beyond disrespectful. What do you want to do? I spread documents across her conference table. Ownership papers, financial statements, the timeline of my 5-year experiment. I want to attend my son's wedding. I'll arrive at 2:30 on June 15th, walk through the front doors, and take my place at the ceremony. I won't cause a scene. I'll simply be there. The truth will handle the rest. Jennifer studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Attorney mode engaged. It's your property. Michael rented the venue, but you're the owner. Legally, you have every right to be there. More than that, actually, you have authority over every aspect of the event. She pulled out her phone, started making calls, to the Cascade's general manager, to the event coordinator, to the head of security, informing them, confidentially, that the owner would be attending the Murray Chen wedding and should be given full access. You'll need a witness, Jennifer said after hanging up, someone who can verify what happened. I'm clearing my June 15th. We spent 2 hours planning logistics, timing, positioning, legal boundaries. What I could say, what I could not. Jennifer made notes in her precise handwriting, building the framework that would protect me from any claims of disruption. After leaving her office, I drove to the Cascade Resort. The ferry crossing gave me time to think, watching Vancouver Island grow larger through the morning mist. I had not visited in 5 years, part of my deliberate invisibility. The management team thought I had retired, thought the company was run by a corporate board. They did not know the founder still made every major decision through carefully worded emails. I parked in the employee lot and entered through the service entrance. The same entrance I had used 30 years ago as a young maintenance worker at a different hotel. The smell of salt air and cedar brought Susan back so strongly I had to stop, hand on the wall, breathing through the memory. The general manager, Patricia Huang, nearly dropped her tablet when I appeared in her office doorway. "Mr. Murray, we weren't expecting." "Patricia, I need your help." I closed the door, sat across from her desk. "There's a wedding happening here in June. Michael Murray and Victoria Chen." "Yes, the Chen-Murray wedding. Quite a large event. 300 guests, premium package." She pulled up the file on her computer. "Is there a problem with the booking? Michael Murray is my son." Patricia's face cycled through shock, confusion, then dawning understanding. "Wait, the groom is your son? But he never mentioned. None of the correspondence indicated. He doesn't know I own this resort. He doesn't know anything about my actual circumstances." I leaned forward. "He's excluded me from the guest list because he believes I'm a struggling handyman who would embarrass him in front of his wife's wealthy family." Patricia sat back, processing. I watched the emotions play across her face. Disbelief, anger, sympathy. "How can I help, sir?" "June 15th, 2:30 sharp. I'll enter through the main lobby. I'll take my place in the ceremony hall. When the moment is right, I'll introduce myself to the guests. Mr. Murray, if I may." Patricia hesitated. "This wedding has been planned for months. The bride's family is expecting a perfect event. Your appearance could what? Reveal that my son is ashamed of his father? Demonstrate that he took my money for this wedding while excluding me from attending?" I kept my voice calm. "I'm not here to destroy his marriage, Patricia. I'm here to show him who he's chosen to disrespect." She nodded slowly. "I'll ensure you have full access. Should I inform the wedding planner?" "No, this remains between us until the moment arrives." I walked through my resort before leaving, touched the cedar panels I had selected 15 years ago, looked at the ocean view through floor-to-ceiling windows Susan and I had designed together, saw the framed photograph in the main lobby, our opening day, both of us cutting the ribbon, Patricia's predecessor standing beside us. The resort was beautiful, successful, mine, and my son had chosen it without knowing. That evening, back in Burnaby, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Dad, please don't try to come to the Cascade in June. I know you might want to see the venue, but it would be too painful for you to watch from outside. Stay home and relax. We'll visit after and show you photos. Love you." He actually thought I might stand outside my own resort, watching through windows like a beggar. The condescension in those final words, "love you," made my jaw clench. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my closet and pulled out the garment bag I hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside, my Hugo Boss suit, charcoal gray, impeccably tailored, Italian leather shoes. Platinum cufflinks Susan had given me for our 25th anniversary. I had worn this suit to investor meetings, resort openings, charity galas. I tried it on, standing before my bedroom mirror. The man looking back wasn't the modest handyman in flannel shirts. This was the businessman who had built an empire, the husband who had stood beside Susan at ribbon cuttings, the father who deserved respect. I hung the suit on my closet door where I could see it every morning. 4 months until June 15th. I could wait. The months passed slowly. Spring came to British Columbia with cherry blossoms and longer days. I continued my handyman routine, fixing sinks and patching drywall for neighbors who had no idea about my real identity. Michael called occasionally, always brief, always with that performative brightness. He never mentioned the wedding details, never asked if I had plans for June 15th, never acknowledged that he had excluded his father from the most important day of his life. On June 14th, I drove to Vancouver Island. Jennifer met me at the ferry terminal, and we checked into a small inn near the Cascade Resort, the kind of modest place my son would have expected me to choose. I barely slept that night, lay in the darkness thinking about Susan, about Michael as a little boy helping me paint hotel rooms, about the moment everything had changed. Morning came gray and soft, typical island weather. By noon, the clouds had burned away, leaving bright June sunshine. At 2 o'clock, I put on my Hugo Boss suit, checked my reflection, adjusted my cufflinks. Jennifer nodded approval. Ready? I've been ready for 5 years. We drove to the Cascade Resort. The parking lot was full of luxury vehicles: Mercedes, BMW, Tesla, the occasional Porsche. I pulled my Ford F-150 into a spot near the service entrance. A small rebellion, parking my work truck among the status symbols. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 o'clock. Guests would be arriving now. Finding their seats in the oceanfront pavilion Susan and I had designed specifically for weddings. I walked through the main entrance. The lobby staff recognized something in my bearing, something that didn't match my usual modest appearance. They stepped aside, nodded respectfully. Patricia Huang waited near the elevator. Her face was carefully neutral, but I saw the tension around her eyes. Mr. Murray, everything is prepared. The ceremony begins in 40 minutes. Thank you, Patricia. Sir, if I may. She hesitated. Your son is in the groom's suite. He seems nervous. Good. I walked through the resort, taking my time, letting staff members see me. Jennifer followed a few steps behind, witness to everything. We passed through the restaurant where my photograph hung on the wall, the one from opening day. Susan smiled at me from 15 years ago, forever young, forever proud. The pavilion was filling with guests. I paused at the entrance, scanning the crowd. Elegant dresses, designer suits, the particular confidence of people who had never worried about money. Victoria's family occupied the front rows, her father sitting with that particular posture of a man who expected deference. I saw a few familiar faces, business contacts from my previous life who would recognize me. They would be useful soon. I did not enter the pavilion. Not yet. Instead, I positioned myself near the side entrance, partially concealed by floral arrangements, waiting. At 2:45, the string quartet began playing. Guests settled into their seats. The minister took his position at the front. At 2:50, Michael emerged from the side door, took his place at the altar. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, confident, pleased with himself. He scanned the crowd, smiling at familiar faces, nodding at important people. His eyes passed right over the spot where I stood. Didn't recognize me, didn't expect me to be there. Victoria appeared at 2:58, a vision in white, her father escorting her down the aisle. The crowd stood, music swelled. Michael's face transformed with genuine emotion as his bride approached. The ceremony began. Vows were exchanged. Rings were placed. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and they kissed while 300 guests applauded. I waited. The minister invited everyone to remain seated for the family speeches before moving to the reception. Victoria's father stood first, delivered a polished address about family legacy and social connection. Victoria's mother spoke next, something about welcoming Michael into their family. Then the minister looked at his notes, announced that the groom would like to say a few words. Michael stood, champagne glass in hand, smile bright and confident. Thank you all for being here on the happiest day of my life. It means so much to have everyone we love celebrating with us. Everyone we love. The words landed like a slap. I want to thank Victoria's amazing family for welcoming me, for supporting this wedding, for showing me what true class and generosity look like. He paused, gestured at the surroundings. And I have to say, this venue is incredible. The Cascade Resort is absolutely world-class. Victoria found it online, and we knew instantly it was perfect. Whoever owns this place must be living the dream. A few people laughed politely. I stepped forward. That would be me. My voice carried clearly through the pavilion, amplified by the natural acoustics Susan and I had designed into the space. 300 heads turned. Michael's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. I walked down the center aisle. Hugo Boss, suit impeccable. Italian shoes clicking on the flagstone. Every step deliberate and measured. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared. Someone whispered, "Isn't that Robert Murray?" Michael's face had drained of color. Victoria grabbed his arm, confusion and alarm battling across her expression. I reached the front of the pavilion, turned to face the guests. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Murray. I founded Murray Hospitality Group 30 years ago. I own this resort and 16 others across British Columbia." I paused, letting the words settle. I'm also Michael's father, the handyman who was too poor to be invited to his own son's wedding. The silence was absolute. 300 people stared at me, then at Michael, then back at me. The calculation happening behind their eyes was almost audible. "Dad." Michael's voice cracked. "What are you? How did I get in?" "I own the building, son. I designed this pavilion with your mother 20 years ago. We dreamed about watching you get married here someday." I turned to face him directly. "She died believing you would grow up to be a good man. A man who valued people for who they are, not what they owned." Victoria's father stood up, face flushed. "What is this? Some kind of stunt?" "No stunt, Mr. Chen. Just truth." I pulled out my phone, opened the Forbes article from 5 years ago. Robert Murray. The hidden empire behind BC's luxury resorts. Net worth estimated at 50 million, though it's grown quite a bit since then. I handed the phone to Michael. His hands were shaking. "Your mother and I built this from nothing. From a maintenance worker's salary and a dream. We lived modestly because she believed in teaching you values. After she died, I continued living simply to see who would value me for myself rather than my money." I looked at Victoria, at her parents, at the 300 guests bearing witness. "You failed that test, Michael. You took my money for this wedding. $40,000 you thought was my entire savings, and then excluded me because a handyman father would embarrass you in front of important people." Someone in the back was already Googling. I heard the soft sounds of typing, of search results loading, of gasps as photographs appeared on screens. Robert Murray cutting ribbons, shaking hands with premiers, accepting business awards. Victoria's father had pulled out his own phone. His face went from suspicious to shocked to calculating in the space of 30 seconds. "Michael." His voice was sharp. "You told us your father was a struggling maintenance worker. You said he couldn't afford proper attire for the wedding. You said—" "I didn't know." Michael's composure shattered. "I thought he was poor. He lives in this tiny house, drives a work truck, wears flannel shirts. That was a choice, son. A test. And you showed me exactly who you are." Victoria's mother stood up, something dangerous in her eyes. "You mean to tell me we spent 6 months planning this wedding, inviting everyone we know, and the groom's father owns the venue? That he's wealthier than half the people here? And we didn't invite him?" The social mathematics were devastating. In Victoria's world, connections meant everything, and they had just publicly rejected a man with more connections than anyone present. I addressed the crowd one final time. "The wedding is paid for. The reception is prepared. I won't disrupt my son's day any further." I looked at Michael, saw the tears starting to form in his eyes, but I wanted everyone here to know the truth. About what happened. About who decided a father wasn't worthy of his son's wedding because he drove a work truck and lived in a modest house. I turned to walk away. "Dad, wait." Michael's voice broke completely. "Please." "I didn't. I was trying to." "You were trying to hide me, son. Because you were ashamed." I walked out of the pavilion, through the lobby, past the photograph of Susan and me on opening day. Jennifer fell into step beside me. Behind us, the murmur grew into open chaos. Victoria's father arguing with Michael. Victoria crying. Guests clustering in groups, phones to ears. The scandal spreading beyond these walls with every passing second. We drove away in my Ford F-150, past the luxury vehicles in the parking lot, past the valets, who now knew exactly who I was. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Vancouver's business community would know what happened here. Michael and Victoria's social destruction had only begun. The week following the wedding was devastating for Michael and Victoria. I did not witness it directly, But Jennifer provided updates through her professional network. Word traveled fast when prominent families stumbled. Victoria's father, Harrison Chen, spent the Sunday after the wedding doing damage control. His business partners had questions. Uncomfortable questions about his son-in-law's judgment, about the Chen family's vetting process, about whether the Chens could be trusted if they didn't even know their own daughter's father-in-law was a multimillionaire. Monday morning, Michael arrived at his marketing coordinator position to find a meeting request from the director of human resources. The company had received calls from clients concerned about working with someone who displayed such poor judgment in personal matters. He wasn't fired, but he was removed from all client-facing roles, transferred to internal communications. Salary dropped from $85,000 to $62,000. No more expense account lunches. No more networking events. Victoria fared worse. Her position at her father's investment firm had always been more title than substance. Now it was neither. Harrison Chen gave his daughter a choice: take an unpaid leave of absence until the scandal died down, or face daily reminders that she had embarrassed the family in front of everyone who mattered. She took the leave. Their expensive Cole Harbor condo, $4,000 a month, suddenly felt less sustainable. The wedding debt, $30,000 beyond my contribution, loomed larger. The social invitations stopped arriving. The country club friends stopped calling. By Thursday, Michael's name appeared on my phone screen. First time since the wedding. I let it go to voicemail. His message was raw, broken. Dad, please. I need to talk to you. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. Please call me back. I listened to it 3 times, then deleted it. Friday brought another call. Saturday, 2 more. Sunday, a text. Dad, please. I'm begging you. Monday morning, exactly 1 week after the wedding, I finally answered. What do you want, Michael? Dad. His voice cracked immediately. Can I come see you? Please. I need to apologize in person. I need you to understand. Understand what? That you're sorry you got caught? That you wish I had stayed hidden so your social climbing wouldn't be disrupted? Silence. Then, quietly, I deserve that. I deserve all of it. But please, Dad, give me a chance to explain. I thought about Susan, about what she would want, about whether there was anything left in my son worth saving. Fine. Come over. But bring Victoria. She was part of this too. They arrived at 2 o'clock. I watched from the window as they sat in their BMW for several minutes, gathering courage. The car that had seemed like such a statement 2 months ago now looked like a liability they could not afford. They walked up my cracked driveway, past my work truck, to my front door. Their faces carried the particular exhaustion of people who had spent a week confronting the consequences of their choices. I opened the door before they could knock. Come in. We sat in my living room, the same space Victoria had silently judged 2 months ago. The worn furniture, the dated carpet, the modest television. She looked at everything differently now. Michael spoke first, his voice thick with emotion. Dad, I was a terrible son. I valued money and status more than family. I was ashamed of you, and that shame was about my own insecurity, not anything you did wrong. He stopped, wiped his eyes. Mom would be so disappointed in me. She raised me better than this. You raised me better than this. And I threw it all away because I wanted to impress people who don't actually care about me. Victoria spoke next, her voice steady but soft. Mr. Murray, Robert, I pushed Michael to exclude you. I convinced him that having a handyman father would hurt our image. I made him feel ashamed of his own family. She paused. I was wrong. About everything that matters. I looked at them both, saw the genuine remorse in their eyes, saw something that might, with cultivation, grow into actual understanding. Susan and I built everything we have from nothing, I said quietly. She was a hotel maid when I met her. I was fixing toilets. We didn't come from money. We created it through work and sacrifice and believing in each other. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at my modest yard. After she died, I wanted to see who would value me for myself. You both failed that test spectacularly. But failure isn't final unless you refuse to learn from it. I turned back to face them. I'm willing to forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward with clear understanding. Trust has to be rebuilt through action, not words. Michael nodded, desperate hope crossing his face. Whatever it takes, Dad. Whatever you need. I sat back down. First, you're going to sell the condo and move somewhere you can actually afford. Second, you're going to pay off your wedding debt yourselves, without help from Victoria's parents. Third, you're going to volunteer at the Susan Murray Community Foundation, the organization your mother started to help struggling families. 20 hours a month, both of you, for a year. Victoria started to speak, probably to object, but Michael's hand on her arm stopped her. And fourth, I continued, you're going to learn what your mother and I actually built. Not the money, not the resorts, the values, the relationships. The understanding that people's worth has nothing to do with their bank accounts. I met Michael's eyes directly. I'm not going to rescue you financially. I'm not going to use my connections to fix your careers. You're going to rebuild from where you are, with what you have, just like your mother and I did. Yes, Michael said immediately. Whatever it takes. Victoria hesitated, then nodded. Yes, we understand. Good. Come back next Sunday. We'll have dinner. Real dinner, not some overpriced restaurant. We'll talk about your mother, about how we started, about what actually matters. They left an hour later, walking down my cracked driveway with something they hadn't had when they arrived. Purpose. I stood at my window, watching them drive away, Susan's photograph in my hands. I did what you would have wanted, I whispered to her image. I didn't destroy him. I'm trying to save him. Whether it would work, only time would tell. But for the first time in months, I felt something other than hurt. I felt hope. 6 months later, Michael and Victoria sold the Cole Harbor condo and moved to a modest apartment in East Vancouver, the same neighborhood Susan and I had lived in 40 years ago, when we were just starting out. Michael kept his internal communications job. Victoria found work at a non-profit, entry level, nothing like her previous position, but honest and meaningful. They volunteered at the Susan Murray Community Foundation every Saturday, helping families who were struggling the way Susan and I had once struggled. I saw Michael there sometimes, really talking with people, really listening, becoming someone his mother would have recognized. Our Sunday dinners became a ritual. Simple food, real conversation, stories about Susan, and our early days. Victoria learned who her mother-in-law had actually been. Not just the name on a foundation, but a woman who had cleaned hotel rooms and dreamed of something more. On a gray November afternoon, exactly 1 year after that first dinner in Yaletown, Michael called me. Dad, can you come to the foundation? There's something I want to show you. I drove to the community center, parked my truck in the lot, walked through doors that bore Susan's name. Michael waited in the main hall, surrounded by foundation volunteers, Victoria beside him. On the wall behind them hung a new display. Photographs of Susan through the years, from hotel maid to entrepreneur to philanthropist. We put this together, Michael said, his voice thick, Victoria and I, to show people who Mom really was, not the rich woman who funded this place, the woman who understood struggle because she lived it. I stepped closer to the photographs. Susan, at 20, wearing her housekeeping uniform. Susan, at 30, standing in front of our first motel. Susan, at 40, at 50, her smile never changing, her values never wavering. And there, at the end of the display, a photograph I had never seen. Susan holding baby Michael, both of them laughing at something off camera. Where did you find this? Mom's old photo albums. Victoria and I went through them all. There are hundreds of pictures, Dad. Stories you never told me. I touched the glass, covering Susan's face. Felt tears I hadn't expected gathering in my eyes. She would be proud of you, Michael. Of who you're becoming. I'm trying, Dad. He put his arm around Victoria. We both are. That evening, I sat on my back deck, despite the cold. Susan's wedding ring warm against my chest. The hurt from that first phone call, the dismissal, the shame, it hadn't disappeared entirely. Some wounds leave scars, but the scars had become reminders rather than barriers. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Dad. I know I didn't deserve a second chance. I promise I won't waste it." I texted back, "Your mother would be proud. So am I." I set down the phone and looked up at the stars emerging through the November clouds. Love doesn't mean accepting everything. Sometimes love means showing people hard truths. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they learn from them. Michael had learned. And somewhere, I hoped Susan was watching, finally proud of the man our son was becoming. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear another story, click the link on the left. Thank you for watching.